I'm Krista Vance, 32, a financial analyst in Denver, Colorado. Last week, my brother texted, "Come join us for dinner, it's on the family." I should have seen the catch. At the restaurant, I walked in hopeful despite everything. The table was buzzing, my family laughing glasses clinking. The waiter handed me a menu marked guest discount drinks only. I froze. My dad leaned close, muttering, "You're not on the list." My brother smirked, avoiding my eyes. Something snapped. I smiled tightly, said, "I'll take your best cocktail and a bottle of champagne." The waiter blinked but wrote it down. I slid the order to their tab. Minutes later, the bill landed. My mom's voice sliced through the noise. "Who ordered a $300 champagne?" I stood, dropped my napkin, and walked out, their murmurs trailing me. That night was just the spark of something bigger, something they'd regret starting. If you've ever been blindsided by those closest to you, smash that subscribe button and stay with me. This story's about to unravel a tangle of secrets you won't see coming. That dinner wasn't the first time my family let me down. I've spent years caught in their cycle of demands, always hoping they'd see me as more than a solution to their problems. It started small, but it never stayed that way. My brother Corey couldn't keep up with his rent. $800 one month, $1,200 the next. I sent the money believing he'd find his footing. He didn't. Over 2 years, I gave him $12,000 each, transfer, a silent plea for him to take responsibility. He'd just text, "Can you help me out again?" like it was nothing. My mom Karen leaned on me after a surgery went south. Her hospital bills hit $4,000. I paid them thinking she'd be grateful. Instead, she called weeks later, voice heavy, "We're barely getting by. You're our only hope." I sent 3,000 more, waiting for a sign she valued me. It never came. My dad, Roger, was no different. His truck was a constant drain, $2,500 for a new radiator, $1,000 for brakes. I covered it, hoping he'd stand on his own. He didn't. He'd say, "You've got it good, don't you?" As if my hard work was his to claim. My younger sister Shannon asked less often. Once she needed $500 for a work crisis. I sent it expecting a real thank you. She sent a quick text and went quiet. I kept track: 7,000 to my mom, 3,500 to my dad, 1,500 to my sister. Every dollar weighed on me, a reminder of their expectations. I wasn't just helping, I was their crutch. The worst part wasn't the money. It was how they acted, like I owed it. Corey's casual, "You're the successful one," cut deep. Karen's sighs about their struggles made me feel guilty for my own stability. Roger's gruff lectures about family duty left me hollow. I'd wait for a gesture, a word, anything to show they saw me as more than a wallet. Instead, they'd call with new requests, each one chipping away at my patience. I held on to the hope they'd change, that they'd see my sacrifices. Each time that hope slipped further away. My cousin Jason jumped in whenever I pushed back. "Family sticks together," he'd say, his tone sharp, like I was betraying them by hesitating. He wasn't after my money, he was guarding their system, making sure I stayed in line. His words stung, planting doubts. Was I wrong to want boundaries? Was I selfish for protecting what I'd earned? I wasn't. But his judgment made me second-guess myself. Growing up, I was taught family comes first. We weren't rich, but we scraped by in our Denver suburb. When I started my career, their requests felt reasonable. A few hundred here, 1,000 there. I wanted them to be proud to see my success as ours. But it shifted. Corey stopped trying to manage his finances. Karen's emergencies never ended. Roger acted like my income was theirs to tap. Even Shannon, who I thought got me, fell into the pattern. Their demands grew, and I was drowning in them. I tried to set limits once. Last year, I told Corey I couldn't cover his rent again. He went silent, then said, "I'll figure it out." 3 days later, Karen called, voice breaking. "He's going to lose his place." I sent $1,000, trapped by guilt. Every time I said no, someone, Roger, Karen, Jason, would push back. "You've got it better than us," my dad would mutter. "Don't turn your back on family," Jason would say. Their words burrowed into me, making me question if I was the problem. I'd cave, hoping this time they'd respect me. They didn't. The stress was relentless. I'd check my bank account, see the gaps their requests left. I worked hard, save for a future, a home, maybe stability. But every dollar I gave pulled me further from that. I started dreading their calls, their texts, the weight of their voices. I wasn't living extravagantly, but they acted like I was. My nights grew restless, my patience thin. I kept believing in family, in their promises. Corey's "I'll pay you back," Karen's "this is the last time, Rogers, we'll make it work." All empty. By the time my brother sent that dinner invite, I was worn out. I wanted to believe it was a chance to feel like family again, not just their fallback. But deep down, I knew their pattern. That night wasn't just a meal, it was the start of seeing them clearly, of realizing I couldn't keep carrying their weight. The night of the dinner, I drove to the restaurant with a flicker of hope. Maybe this time my family would show they cared. I pulled up to a sleek Denver steakhouse, its glow promising something special. Inside, the hostess led me to a corner table where my family, my brother, my cousin, my mom, and my dad sat laughing, glasses raised. Their plates were piled high with steak and lobster wine flowing freely. I smiled, expecting a warm welcome. Instead, the waiter handed me a slim menu labeled "Drinks Only." I froze, my smile fading. "What's this?" I asked, holding up the menu. Roger leaned over, his voice low but sharp. "You're not on the meal plan, Krista." Corey smirked, slicing into his steak. Jason let out a chuckle, avoiding my eyes. Karen didn't look up, just sipped her wine. My chest tightened. They'd invited me to their feast but left me out like I was an afterthought. I scanned their faces, searching for a hint of guilt. There was none, just smug satisfaction. I could have walked away then, but something snapped. I wasn't their doormat anymore. I caught the waiter's eye and said, "Bring me your best cocktail and a bottle of champagne, the $300 one." He hesitated, glancing at the table. I leaned in, voice steady. "Put it on their tab." The waiter nodded and left. I sat back, sipping my water, watching them squirm. Their laughter died, replaced by awkward glances. Good. Let them feel it. The champagne arrived, sparkling in its chilled bottle. I poured a glass, raised it slightly, and said, "To family." My tone dripped with edge. Karen forced a smile, but Roger's jaw clenched. Corey muttered something under his breath, and Jason shot him a look. They dug into their food, but the mood had shifted. I didn't touch the cocktail or champagne, I didn't need to. This wasn't about drinking, it was about making a point. For years I'd carried their burdens, and they'd repaid me with this, a public snub, a menu that screamed I didn't belong. Half an hour later, the bill landed. The waiter set it in front of Roger, who opened it and froze. Karen peeked over, her eyes widening. "Who ordered a $300 champagne?" she snapped, her voice cutting through the restaurant's hum. Every head at the table turned to me. I stood, tossed my napkin on the chair, and said, "You invited me, didn't you?" Corey's face reddened. Jason started to speak, but I cut him off. "Save it." I walked out, their stunned silence trailing behind me. The cool night air hit my face, but my pulse was racing. As I reached my car, the weight of their betrayal settled in. They hadn't just left me off the meal plan, they'd planned it, laughing while I played the fool. Roger's words, Corey's smirk, Jason's chuckle, Karen's silence. They'd orchestrated this to remind me of my place. I'd spent years giving them everything, hoping for respect. Instead, they'd humiliated me, treating me like an outsider at their table. The sting was sharp, but it wasn't new. It was just louder, clearer, impossible to ignore. I slid into my driver's seat, gripping the wheel. My phone buzzed, probably Karen or Corey with some excuse. I didn't check. I was done swallowing their lies. That night wasn't just a dinner gone wrong. It was a breaking point. I'd let them walk over me for too long, but no more. I wasn't their bank, their backup, their punching bag. They thought they could dismiss me, mock me, and I'd keep coming back. They were wrong. As I drove away, one thought burned clear: I'd never let them make me feel small again. 2 days later, my family showed up at my apartment unannounced. The doorbell buzzed, and there they were, my brother, my mom, and my dad, crowded in my hallway. Their faces were tight eyes, narrowed. I let them in my stomach, nodding. I knew why they were here, the $300 champagne I'd stuck them with at the restaurant. They weren't here to apologize. They were here to attack. Corey spoke first, his voice sharp. What was that stunt with the champagne? He leaned against my counter, arms crossed like he had the right to demand answers. Karen chimed in, her tone accusing. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Roger stood by the door, glaring. You think you're clever, huh? He said, his words heavy with scorn. I stood in the middle of my living room, heart pounding but steady. They thought they could corner me, guilt me into backing down. They were wrong. I took a breath and said, You invited me to a dinner where I wasn't even allowed to eat. You laughed about it. Their faces froze. Karen opened her mouth, but I kept going. I've paid for Corey's rent for years, covered your medical bills, Mom, fixed your truck, Dad, even helped Shannon when she asked. And you repay me with a drinks-only menu. Corey scoffed, rolling his eyes. Don't make it a big deal. It was just a mix-up. A mix-up, I almost laughed. You planned it, I said, staring him down. You're blowing this out of proportion, he said. We're family. You don't pull stunts like that. I didn't flinch. Karen's eyes welled up, her voice trembling. How could you do this to us? She said, as if I'd betrayed them. I recognized that tone, her old trick to make me feel guilty. It didn't work this time. I'm done, I said, my voice firm. I've carried you all long enough. No more money, no more favors. Roger's face reddened. You're cutting us off, he barked. After everything we've done for you, I met his gaze. What have you done, Dad? Tell me, because all I remember is giving. Corey threw his hands up. You're acting like we're leeches, he said. We're just struggling. I shook my head. Struggling doesn't mean humiliating me at a restaurant. Struggling doesn't mean laughing while I'm left out. The room went quiet, the air thick with their anger. Karen wiped her eyes, but I saw no real tears. Roger clenched his fists, muttering, ungrateful. Corey glared, his voice low. You'll regret this. I didn't waver. I regret letting you walk over me for years, I said. Get out. They didn't move at first, stunned by my resolve. I pointed to the door. Now. Karen gasped, clutching her purse. You're breaking our family apart, she said, her voice sharp. I didn't answer. Corey stormed out first, followed by Roger, who didn't look back. Karen lingered, her face a mix of hurt and fury. You've changed, she said. I nodded. Good. I shut the door behind her. I stood alone in my apartment, my pulse steady for the first time in days. Their accusations echoed, but they couldn't shake me anymore. I'd spent years giving them everything, money, time, patience, only to be mocked and dismissed. Now they'd come to my home demanding I bend again. They thought I'd cave like always. But I wasn't that person anymore. I'd drawn my line and I wasn't stepping back. A week after the confrontation, my inbox pinged with an email from my mom. I stared at the subject line, "We need to talk." My gut told me it wasn't an apology. I opened it, and Karen's words hit like a slap. You've been hiding a savings fund from us, Krista. That money could help your family. Share it or you're no daughter of mine. My blood ran cold. That fund was my private lifeline, years of late nights at my Denver office saved for a new apartment. I'd never told anyone in the family. How did she know I reread the email, my hands shaking? Karen didn't just demand the money, she accused me of betraying them, as if my hard-earned savings belonged to them. Her tone was sharp, entitled, like I'd stolen something by daring to plan my future. I sat at my desk, the silence of my apartment deafening. My family had mocked me at that dinner, attacked me in my own home, and now they were digging into my private finances. The violation burned deeper than any snub or shout. I needed answers. The only person outside the family who knew about my savings was my Aunt Linda. I'd mentioned it to her months ago during a rare coffee meetup, trusting her to keep it quiet. I dialed her number, my voice tight. Did you tell Karen about my savings, I asked? Linda hesitated. then sighed. I mentioned it to her, Krista. She was worried about the family and I thought I cut her off. You thought it was okay to share my private business? My voice rose, anger spilling over. Linda stammered, I didn't mean to hurt you. But she had. She'd handed my secret to the people who'd been draining me for years. I hung up, my chest heaving. Linda's betrayal was a new wound. I'd trusted her, thinking she was different outside their cycle of demands, but she'd fed their entitlement, giving them ammunition to come after me again. Karen's email wasn't just a request, it was a calculated move using my own dreams against me. I hovered over the delete button, then pressed it, erasing her words. They didn't get to control me anymore, not after everything. I wasn't taking chances with my future. I called a lawyer that afternoon, a contact from work who specialized in financial protection. I need to safeguard my assets, I told her, voice steady. My family's trying to get into my savings. She asked for details and I laid it out. Karen's email, Linda's leak, years of their demands. She promised to draft a plan, a trust to lock my saving steps, to shield my accounts. It wasn't cheap, but it was worth it. My money was mine, earned through my sweat, not theirs to claim. As I hung up, the weight of their intrusion settled in. That savings fund was more than money. It was my escape, my chance at a home, a life free from their grasp. Karen's email wasn't just greedy. It was an invasion, a demand to rip away my security. Linda's role hurt worse. She'd been my confidant, the one I thought understood. Now I saw her clearly complicit in their game. They weren't just after my money anymore. They were trying to break my resolve. I leaned back in my chair, staring at my laptop screen. My phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts from Corey, Jason, or Roger since I'd kicked them out. Karen's email was their new tactic, a way to guilt me back into line. But I wasn't the same Krista who'd caved to their tears or lectures. I'd spent years giving them everything only to be mocked, dismissed, and now exposed. This wasn't just about money, it was about my right to my own life. I closed my laptop, my decision clear. I wasn't just protecting my savings, I was guarding my future. They'd crossed a line, thinking they could demand what I'd built. Linda's betrayal showed me no one in that family could be trusted, not with my plans, not with my peace. I'd let them in too long, but that was over. My dreams were mine, and I'd fight to keep them no matter what they threw at me next. 2 weeks later, my phone lit up with notifications. I glanced at the screen, expecting work emails, but it was Facebook and Instagram buzzing with activity. My stomach dropped as I opened a post from my brother Corey. It was a vague, biting caption. Some people turn their backs when family needs them most. The comments were worse. My dad Roger wrote, shameful behavior. My mom Karen added, we raised her better. My cousin Jason chimed in, selfishness hurts everyone. Their words stung, each one a public jab meant to paint me as the villain. I scrolled further, my hands trembling. Corey had posted a photo from the restaurant dinner, my empty chair in focus, with a caption, guess who bailed Jason? Shared it, adding priorities. Right friends I hadn't spoken to in months, liked the posts, some even commenting. What happened? Or, that's cold. My inbox filled with messages from old classmates, coworkers, even a distant cousin. Is this true? Krista? Why are you fighting with your family? The questions piled up, each one twisting the knife. They didn't know the years I'd spent bailing them out, only the story my family was selling. I sat on my couch staring at my phone. The hurt was raw, like a wound reopened. They weren't just attacking me privately anymore, they'd taken it public, airing their lies to anyone who'd listen. Corey's post was calculated, framing me as heartless. Jason's share was a power play, leveraging his clean image to make their story stick. Karen and Roger's comments sealed it, rallying strangers to judge me. They wanted to shame me into submission, to make me feel small in front of the world. I wanted to fire back, to post a rebuttal exposing their years of demands. But I stopped myself. Responding would only fuel their drama, giving them the attention they craved. Instead, I muted their profiles and set my accounts to private. My finger hovered over the block button, but I held off. I wasn't running from them. I was done playing their game. Their posts couldn't undo the truth I'd given everything, and they'd thrown it back in my face. The messages from friends hurt most. A close colleague, Sarah, texted, "Saw your brother's post. You okay?" Another friend, Mike, wrote, "Didn't know things were this bad with your family." I read their words, my throat tight. I typed replies, then deleted them. How could I explain years of manipulation in a text? How could I sum up the dinner snub, the confrontation, the email demanding my savings? I left their messages unanswered, the isolation sinking in. Their questions weren't cruel, but they carried my family's narrative, not mine. I leaned back, my apartment quiet except for the hum of my phone. This wasn't just about hurt feelings, it was a deliberate campaign to ruin my name. They'd lost their grip on my money, so they'd turned to public opinion, hoping to break me. But I wasn't breaking. I'd protected my savings, set boundaries, and now I needed to end this for good. I started planning a final meeting, one where I'd face them on my terms, not theirs. I grabbed a notebook and wrote down what I'd say. No yelling, no tears, just the truth. I'd tell Corey his post didn't change the fact that I'd carried him for years. I'd tell Jason his loyalty to them didn't make him noble. I'd tell Karen and Roger their comments only proved they saw me as a tool, not a daughter. This meeting wouldn't be about changing them, they'd never change. It was about closing the door, making it clear I was done. As I wrote, my resolve hardened. Their social media stunt was their last weapon, and it hadn't worked. I wasn't the selfish one, they were twisting my life into their story for likes and sympathy. I'd spent too long letting them define me. Now I was taking that power back. This final confrontation would be my stand, not for their approval, but for my peace. I closed my notebook, ready to face them one last time. 3 weeks later, Corey texted about another family dinner. I almost ignored it, but this was my chance to end things for good. I drove to a small Denver diner, its neon sign flickering. Inside, my family, my brother, my cousin, my mom, my dad, and my younger sister, sat at a corner booth, their faces tense. I slid into the seat, my notebook plan from weeks ago clear in my mind. This wasn't about reconciliation, it was about closure. Corey started, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Nice to see you show up, Krista." Karen leaned in, her tone sharp. "Your little online silence didn't fix anything." Roger grunted. "Still acting high and mighty?" Jason crossed his arms, adding, "You've been dodging us, acting selfish." Even Shannon, usually quiet, muttered, "You've changed." Their words were a coordinated hit meant to guilt me back into their fold. I let them talk, my hands steady on the table. When they paused, I spoke, voice calm but firm. "You call me selfish, but let's talk truth. I paid your rent, Corey, while you bought gadgets. I covered your medical bills. Mom, only for you to demand my savings. I fixed your truck, Dad, and got demands in return. Even you, Shannon, took my help and gave nothing back." Their faces tightened, but I kept going. "You mocked me at a dinner, attacked me in my home, and smeared me online. That's not family. That's using me." Karen's eyes narrowed. "You're twisting everything she said," Corey scoffed. "You're just mad we called you out." Jason leaned forward, voice low. "You're tearing us apart, Krista." Roger slammed his hand on the table. "You owe us respect." I didn't flinch. "Respect," I said. "I gave you everything, money, time, my trust. You gave me lies and insults." Shannon looked down, silent, but the rest glared, their manipulation laid bare. I stood, my voice unwavering. "I'm done being your bank, your punching bag, your scapegoat. This ends now." Karen gasped. "You can't walk away from family." I met her eyes. "You walked away from me first." I tossed a $20 bill on the table for the tip, my final gesture, and walked out. Their voices rose behind me, but I didn't look back. The diner door swung shut, and I felt a weight lift. I blocked their numbers in my car, cutting them off for good. 5 months later, I was in my new apartment, a cozy place I'd bought with my protected savings. My life was quiet, free from their demands. I'd heard through a mutual friend about the fallout. Corey was facing financial difficulties, unable to lean on me for rent. His social media rants turned friends away, leaving him isolated. Jason's reputation took a hit when colleagues saw through his family man act after his posts about me surfaced. Karen and Roger's house was falling apart, repairs piling up without my help. They'd stopped hosting their lavish dinners, their pride dented. Shannon, though, had moved out, found a job, and started standing on her own. I was glad for her, but it didn't change my choice. I sat in my apartment, sunlight streaming through the window, and reflected on what I'd learned. Family isn't a free pass to take without giving. Their manipulation, guilt trips, public shaming demands on my savings showed they valued my money over me. Cutting them off wasn't easy, but it was right. Prioritizing myself wasn't selfish. It was survival. I'd spent years trying to please them only to lose pieces of myself. Now I was whole, building a life on my terms. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you for listening. Toxic relationships, even with family, can drain you, but you have the power to walk away. Choose yourself, set boundaries, and don't let guilt hold you back. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done in my place? Share below, and let's keep this conversation going. Your support means everything.